Welcome to Fantasy Football Across America. This is, I think, episode 12. I'm in
Yeah.
Kansas City with Seth Diewold. How's it going, Seth?
We're doing good. Dario rolled in here in the afternoon. The Chiefs play the Broncos tonight in what is probably going to be a blowout, but you never know. AFC West divisional playoff or division play.
Yeah,
So we'll see.
Hopefully, we're all crossing our fingers for a little more Marvin Mims tonight. And maybe I'll see Taylor Swift from a distance, get like a good, really zoomed in picture of her.
There you go.
To send to my Swiftie friends.
Yeah.
But I think that's the main items on the bucket list for tonight's game.
Nice.
But I mean, how long have you been in the Kansas City area, Seth?
Well, I moved here in 2017, so I like to say that I came to Kansas City, and so did Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my team allowed the Chiefs to draft Patrick Mahomes too. My Chicago Bears took Mitchell Trubisky, so I have to hear that all the time. It's like, oh, you're a fan of the Bears, huh? They could have had Patrick Mahomes. It's like, oh, great, okay. But yeah, I've been here for 6 years, and yeah, it's been a good move. Chiefs football has really taken off since I've been here. So I remember going to one of the first Chiefs games I went to was when Alex Smith was still the quarterback and Marcus Mariota threw a touchdown pass to himself.
Oh yeah,
in that playoff game, and they blew a 21-3 lead. And anyway, those tickets were a lot cheaper than they are right now. I tell you, it was $80, 20 rows up in the end zone. It was awesome, except for the fact that the Chiefs blew the game, but whatever.
Yeah. Would you say you've adopted the Chiefs as your secondary team to root for, or do you feel spiteful for their success?
No, I can't. I live vicariously through them, Dario. I hope that the Bears can somehow, some way find a way to be as good as the Chiefs. The Chiefs, I like to tell myself that the Chiefs were once the Bears with terrible quarterback after terrible quarterback, like Elvis Gerbach, bad coaches like Todd Haley. And then one day the stars aligned. They get Andy Reid. He brings in Alex Smith. And then they trade up to draft this quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Maybe someday. Maybe it's going to be this offseason if they get the number 1 pick.
Yeah, that would be.
Which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute.
We've been hinting at that a little bit. But before we continue with today's episode, we're going to hear a quick word from our boss, the Podfather.
DFS getting harder every year, but we're here to make it easier with the DFS Dominator, because I know a lot of optimizers keep coming out. Oh, our optimizer. What about this optimizer? But that optimizer. Well, we have a cash game optimizer that leverages the projections from Dario, Billy, the award-winning projections at PlayerProfiler.com, and builds the best lineups for cash games that have both upside and stability, because that's what you want. It's a couple clicks, boom, boom, boom. You get the best possible lineup for your cash games. But for tournaments, traditional optimizers don't work. That's why we have a Lineup Genius, which takes you through the process of building lineups the way they should be built. Which quarterbacks you want to be overweight on, then building stacks, then setting runbacks, then optimizing, and generating up to 150 lineups that you can easily import into DraftKings, into FanDuel. That's the DFS Dominator. It's only $45 a year, not a week, a year. Just go to Player Profiler, click on the DFS Dominator from the menu, and you won't be sorry.
And welcome back. If you guys didn't catch that, make sure you are subscribed to the DFS Dominator. It's truly game-changing tool. If you guys aren't making your DFS lineups with that, I don't know what you're doing. But anyway, we're back with Fantasy Football Across America. And this is, like I said, the Kansas City episode. I'm here with Seth. And Seth, I think people don't quite understand just how much of Player Profiler you have your hands on. Explain to us in, reasonably short terms, because I'm sure we could go on all day. How, where all over Player Profiler are your fingerprints?
Well, it all started with the articles, right? I've been the editor for the longest stretch, like a year and a half plus, going on 2 years now. That's kind of how I started. So every single article that you see on the website, I've looked at, I've reviewed it, and it got the clear from either me myself, and now I have an assistant, Joel Ybarra, shout out to him, who also writes articles for us too. But so the articles definitely, and then the YouTube shows that you see, like all these new YouTube shows, Dear Miss Fantasy, the Dynasty Roundtable, Fantasy Football Across America, right? The one that we're on right now. I will schedule these. I've written the schedule for them, SEO, like, so basically all the production is between me and then my assistant, Matt Babbage. So like everything on YouTube, everything you see on the articles, and then like miscellaneous stuff like updating player bios overseen by me. So a lot of the miscellaneous stuff with the website too. Basically,
Cool.
and basically my department. So all that content, hopefully we're doing a good job. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. And yeah, it's real exciting though, like to be involved with this, because you look at around at other websites, other YouTube channels, and yeah, they're doing similar things, but they're definitely not bringing in as many content creators as we have. And they're not touching on like a multitude of subject matters that, like, literally, if you come to Player Profiler, we have DFS, we have Dynasty, we have Redraft, like we have Devi information, like we have it all. So it's like it's really cool to be on the cutting edge of something that no one else is doing. So I'm happy to be a part of that.
No, that's awesome. And like, I mean, yeah, I feels like we've both been at the company for a similar amount of time, I think, and I definitely have noticed like your presence just like growing and expanding, where it's like, oh, now Seth is in charge of this, now Seth is in charge of that, and I'm like, whoa, like this guy's doing everything.
Take it over.
Yeah. So, but where did that like passion for fantasy football come from? Like, would you remember where that started?
Well, I've always been an insane sports fan, and so fantasy sports were just kind of a natural way for me to get even more involved in sports, as it is for most people, I'm guessing. And so I think the earliest fantasy, I was in a fantasy league with my high school buddies, and I was terrible. I think it was fantasy baseball, and I was horrible. And I was just, how do I get better at this? And that was in high school. And then, so I played in some more fantasy football leagues and baseball, really not much success. This is probably before, I'm guessing, yeah, it would have been before Player Profiler. It would have been in the late 2008, 2009, 2010 range. So I went through college playing in a league or two, just always being really into football, being into it, but not really understanding, okay, like which players should I go after, like, and not having that depth of knowledge. And then probably, gosh, 5 or 6 years ago, I heard of this website called Player Profiler, and my buddy would send me the player screenshots, and he told me about Dynasty, and I joined my first Dynasty league. Again, it was terrible. Your first startup, it was awful. I remember taking Alshon Jeffrey way too soon, way before Alshon Jeffrey should have gone, because I was like, oh, this guy played for the Bears. And anyway, but as I I started to listen to Mind of Mansion and join a few more Dynasty leagues, and then realized through Player Profiler, okay, like what's a good startup strategy? Which players should you be acquiring? And then just kind of growing and learning as I was listening to the Podfather and some of the other shows as well, like Waiver Wired and Top 10 Takeaways. And then Cody came into the fold, and then I was like, I like this company so much, like, well, let's see, like, why not throw out an email to Matt and see, like, this is what I do. I'm an English teacher. I'm really big into Dynasty. Is there a role for me? And here we are. So like, I guess that's a summary of since high school. You know, I've always just been a huge sports fan, Hawkeyes, Bears, and fantasy sports was the natural way for me to like get even more invested in fantasy in your favorite team and in the leagues and whatever.
Yeah, and do you have what's your fondest memory of any particular fantasy team? Like I'm sure that there must be some deep-seated recollection of a particular touchdown or something like that. Give it to me.
All right, so everybody's got this story, right? Some of my fantasy teams are named the Magic McCowns, and everybody asks me, well, why is your fantasy team named the Magic McCowns? Well, it was Monday Night Football. It was a fantasy football playoff matchup. I had Jason Witten. I had Josh McCown, who was the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears at the time, and Robbie Gould. And I needed 60 points. And I thought, there's no way this is going to happen, right? But Josh McCown passed for 4 touchdowns, ran in for another one. Jason Witten caught a touchdown pass. Robbie Gould kicked a few field goals, a few extra points, and we've got it. And I look at the score, and I'm up by 0.07 points.
Oh my god!
And Josh McCown and Dallas is onside kicking because it's a blowout. So they onside kick. Chicago recovers. If Dallas would have recovered, I would have won. Josh McCown gets in, takes a knee. I swear to this day, he did not lose a yard. My petition did not go through. He did not lose a yard. He just went straight down on the kneel down. He lost a yard, and I lost by 0.03 points.
Oh my god!
So that is my story of, like, it was so magical to get to that point because you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna win this matchup that somehow that I had no business winning. And then to lose it in heartbreaking fashion on a kneel down.
Heartbreaking is an understatement. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm surprised that you would want to honor that with your fantasy team names thereafter. Like, that's how magical is it really?
It was, I mean, it's kind of like a symbol of like my professional teams. You know, we get so close to being good or whatever, and then a decision here or there kind of just, you know, like Iowa they have a 12-0 season in 2015. Again, Iowa, no business really, just kind of pulling games out by the skin of their teeth. Like any good Iowa fan knows, and sorry, we're going off the rails, Dario. Any good Iowa fan knows that Iowa is never going to be in the national championship picture. It's Iowa, all right? Like, we're going to get our 7, 8, 9 wins. We're going to go to a bowl game. It's going to be fine. But to be like ranked number 2 in the country like they were a few years ago was like, oh God, here we go. And here comes Purdue. And then they beat it. Like, so it's, you know, like you have, like, I'll always be an Iowa fan, always be a Bears fan, and you're hoping for the best. But it's kind of like, yeah, are you going to be, like, I don't know, disappointed most of the time? Probably, because there can only be one champion. But still, it's like that magic is there. That when that one day when it actually happens for you, it's like, oh my God, like it happened. Like the Bears won the Super Bowl, Dario. They did it. Finally, after all this pain and misery, we won a Super Bowl, and it's gonna happen one of these years.
Yeah, because I guess you weren't alive to see the last time they won it, right? Because that was 85.
I was born in 89.
Okay.
So
I
almost made it, but yeah, I definitely remember 2006. I think it was 06 or 07. Was the Rex Grossman year where they made it to played the Colts. Devin Hester returned the opening kickoff, and then it was basically downhill from there.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. And how did you become a Bears fan? You said you grew up in Iowa. Like, as I was driving through Iowa, I was thinking, like, I wonder who people from Iowa root for, because it's like I'm coming from the Vikings, going down to the Chiefs, and the Bears are also right there. So yeah, how did you pick the Bears between those 3 Iowa adjacent teams?
Yeah, like when you're in Iowa, it's really the Chiefs, the Packers, the Vikings, and the Bears, like all the Midwest teams. And so I gravitated toward the team that kind of played like my college team. I was an Iowa fan way before I was a Bears fan. So in high school, I just remember this team's like, oh, this Brian Urlacher guy, Lance Briggs, Peanut Tillman, this defense was awesome. And they had this running back named Thomas Jones, who's one of my favorite NFL players of all time. It's Thomas Jones, very underrated player. And I just loved the way they played. Like, they played exactly like the Hawkeyes played. Great defense, terrible quarterback play. lived on kicking field goals and winning 12-9, 15-10, just ugly football games. And so that's, I guess, the style of football I gravitated toward. And here we are. And I think it was really because of that defense and Thomas Jones. I don't think Kyle Orton had much to do with it, if I'm being honest. But yeah, so that's kind of how it goes. But yeah, people from Iowa, you kind of get your choice of whatever team, because obviously, you know, we don't really have a professional team, you know. So
yeah,
it's one of those Midwest teams.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I didn't even think about the fact the Packers are also pretty close by, and then they have quite a overreaching influence. But that kind of makes me, just your mention of Iowa, I have to ask, like, what is up with, I feel like their offense this year especially has been like under the microscope because of the whole like nepotism thing and like the 25 the drive to 325 situation. Like what's that looking like for the Hawkeye fans?
I see he has to average 25 points, right? Is that what they got to do? And then otherwise he's out. Brian Ferentz is out. And if people don't know who's watched, Kirk Ferentz is the head coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes. Brian Ferentz, his son, is the offensive coordinator. The Iowa offense has been terrible for most, like, in fairness, for most of my adult life, the Iowa offense has been terrible, but it's been especially terrible lately. And this is, I think it's kind of a unique betting opportunity, because when they play some of these cream puffs, they're going to try to run up the score because Brian Ferentz wants to hang on to his job. It's like, you remember when we played, you know, Acorn State or whatever, like we scored 58 points, you know? So I think actionable tip. If I don't know what Iowa's schedule is off the top of my head. I'm assuming like they're in division play, like they're in Big Ten play right now. So I doubt that there's a game where they could win by 40 or 50 points. But if that's out there, if they face a team that they can run up the score, they're going to run up the score because they got to average 25 points per game, which is really not that many points in college, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. I mean, the Big Ten's a little tougher, but I think Iowa is notorious for that. I just remember I was at the USC Iowa Holiday Bowl in San Diego a few years ago.
Okay.
USC got our butts kicked. It was not fun.
Okay.
So good for you.
I thought you were going to talk about all the other times when USC just wiped the floor with Iowa, like in the 2003, 2004 Orange Bowl with the Carson Palmer team and Reggie Bush, I think.
Lucky for you, I don't remember that.
Okay. All right.
But that kind of, I think, segues nicely into fantasy talk, because these Iowa tight ends, I mean, what are they putting in the water there, right? It's like Laporta, Kittle. Yeah. I mean, Noah Fant is an above average NFL player in the grand scheme of things. Like, am I tripping, or did TJ Hawkinson also play there? Yeah. Like, what the hell? Where does that come from? Like, what do you think it is?
I don't know. I wish they could recruit quarterbacks as well as they recruit tight ends. Like, I don't know, but like we probably should have seen Sam Laporta coming, because that offense was like historically one of the worst Iowa offenses I've ever seen. And yet Sam Laporta still found a way to produce yards and touchdowns. And so, I mean, I don't really have a good answer for you, Dario, other than I guess they're good at developing these tight ends that can block and have this unique catching ability, like this unique skill set that works well in just about any offense, like because Kittle can, on one play he can block, and on the next play he can fake a block and then run up the seam. They don't know, like, do we have to cover this guy, or do we, it's such a tough matchup for anybody anyway. But yeah, Laporta, gosh, tight end 1 overall, like in fantasy football, is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, I think he's tight end 3 in points per game.
Yeah,
but like I mean, I liked Laporta. One of my takes this offseason was that he would be a top 12 tight end. That was, he was probably ADP like tight end 16 or so. And that's looking like not bold enough of a take. So been very happy to see his success. And I think interesting question for you here. Like, do you prefer Laporta or Kittle rest of season? I mean, Hawkinson probably pretty clearly above both of them, especially after Justin Jefferson's injury. But Kittle and Laporta, redraft league, which one would you rather have?
Well, that's a great question. I think Laporta is probably going to be a little bit more consistent because I know the Lions have Amon-Ra St. Brown, but after him, it's like Josh Reynolds and Khalif Raymond and Marvin Jones. And yeah, they're mixing in like David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs too. But I think Laporta it's a little less convoluted, even though it is there are a lot of good options there. In San Francisco, you have Debo and Ayuk and McCaffrey, and they'll have games where they're up by 20 points. I mean, the 49ers look like, we were talking about it on the Hurdle, which is a new show that Cody Carpentier and Matty Kiwoom have. It's on YouTube. And we were talking about how the 49ers are one of these historically great teams that nobody's talking about them in the same vein as like the 2007 Patriots or the 1985 Bears. But when you look at the team and what they've done so far, and yeah, we're only 5 weeks in, but like they wiped the floor with the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, or was it Sunday Night Football? It was Sunday Night Football. Yeah. So for that reason, I think I would take Laporta, just because I think the Lions defense is not as good as the 49ers defense. They're going to be in games where they're going to be in shootouts. And I think there's going to be more opportunity for him. So that's something at the beginning of the season, it'd be crazy to think like, oh, I'll take Laporta over George Kittle. But I think that's where we are, though.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's where our rest of season rankings would agree with you too. I think we have Laporta as tight end 5, and Kittle is close behind at 6 or 7. So I'm with you there. And I think that kind of makes me wonder, like, how do you feel about tight end premium leagues? Like, do you have a preferred fantasy format or setting that you like?
Yeah, I play in a bunch of, actually, I play in one of the Podfathers 2 tight end leagues, and then I play in a bunch of the safe leagues, 2 points per tight end.
Oh, wow.
Premium. So the tight end's ultra important. And I think this year we're going to look back because Michael Mayer's starting to get more involved. Like Luke Musgrave already has a pretty decent role with Green Bay, and obviously Laporta. Like, I think some of these tight ends are still flying under the radar, especially Michael Mayer. He's one of my dynasty trade targets right now because I think he's a really good player. The Raiders invested a lot in him. They have Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, but outside of that, they need that third or fourth option to step up. And I think we're gonna because of that, like, and obviously in those leagues, like the 2 points per tight end, like the tight ends are super valuable. So I do like that. I do like it when the tight end is. Go figure. The Iowa guy likes the tight ends, so
breaking news.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I like the 2 point, like the tight end premium for sure. But I play in a ton, like most of the leagues I play in is that 2 points per tight end premium. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a serious premium. I mean, if you're in a startup for a league like that, say it's not super flex, like how high are you taking Sam Laporta, right? Like,
oh, he probably won't go high enough, because people just, that format specifically, like I've seen, like one of the earliest drafts I did is somebody walked away with like Kelsey, Pitts, like back when Pitts was what we thought Pitts was going to be. And it's like, you can start and there's no real limit. I mean, you have to start certain positions, like you have to start 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, at least 1 tight end and 1 quarterback, but you can play 3 or 4 tight ends,
right?
So, and then if you get like Kittle, I mean, there's realistically, you could have Kelsey, Kittle, Laporta all on the same team, and that would be wild. But
yeah, that's crazy. And then let's segue into a little bit of just talking about this upcoming Sunday's games. Like you said, we're recording on Thursday. This is probably going up tomorrow, so the viewers will already know the results of the Thursday night game. Hopefully, they can tell us through the screen what the stats were, and we can go bet on that now.
There you go.
But what's one game that you're looking forward to on Sunday?
Well, I got to be looking forward to the Bears, right? The Bears-Vikings. This should be another game. Lucky for the Bears, they have 12 more games to figure out if Justin Fields is the guy. And then likely they have 2 really, really high picks, and we'll see what happens with that Carolina pick. Obviously, we'll be rooting for Miami as they play Carolina this week. But yeah, I think that Chicago Bears, Minnesota Vikings game is going to be real interesting at Soldier Field with no Justin Jefferson. I mean, I almost think this is a game the Bears should win. I don't know what the point spread is, but if Justin Fields is going to prove that he's a legitimate franchise quarterback, I think this is the kind of game he has to win at home against the divisional rival, a very winnable game. So that's going to be interesting, and they should be able to put up a ton of points because it's not like the Minnesota defense is very good. Should probably be a shootout, probably a DFS target, like for some correlation there. So that's one that I got my eye on, and then I think outside of my team, the 49ers Cleveland game is also very intriguing. We'll see if Deshaun Watson plays. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to play or not, but yeah, if he does, that would be interesting.
The vibes are really weird around his situation in Cleveland at the moment. Like that thing about how they said he was cleared to play and he just chose not to, and then that was before their bye, so he's had a full week off, but he still hasn't practiced Wednesday or Thursday this week. I mean, that could be anything, but I think that, either way, you expect the Niners to kind of wipe the floor with the Browns. Yeah. I mean, if you just demolished the Cowboys, sure, it's a West Coast team traveling to Cleveland, so I think those early games for West Coast teams going east, there can always be some surprises, and we know the Browns defense is historic. That defense is not only, I think, the best in the league, but they've been one of the best through 4 games that the league has ever seen. And I don't think they'll contain the Niners' weapons, but it should be a fun challenge for Shanahan.
Yeah, I think watching this 49ers team is so fun. To me, they're far and away the best team in the NFL. I think they're in their own tier. I know Philadelphia is good and the Chiefs are good, but I don't think the Chiefs can match what they can do defensively. And I don't know. Obviously, those are matchups we love to see, and we're probably going to see them in the playoffs. But gosh, Brock Purdy is a lot better than people thought he was going to be. He's carrying over all the momentum from last year. It looks great. I know he's got great weapons to work with, but you still have to, Jimmy Garoppolo was there. Trey Lance was there. These highly touted quarterbacks at the time were there, and they weren't doing what Brock Purdy's doing. So if you're a 49ers fan, I'm very envious of you. This, I think they're clearing away the best team. So I always for whatever, just something about the way they play that I really like watching them. So
yeah, I think the thing that's interesting to me, if I were a 49ers fan, is the best team in the league after 5 weeks. It feels like something always goes wrong between week 5 and the Super Bowl for whoever that team is.
You're right.
So, the Eagles last year, right? They looked invincible. Jalen Hurts got injured. He came back. They made a good playoff run still, but the season is just so long and unpredictable that if I'm a Niners fan right now, I'd be like, oh, we're peaking too early. We're throwing the towel.
That's a good point, because I remember the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year. I remember, I think it was week 2. This is random, so I'm sorry, but the Chargers had the Chiefs on the ropes at Arrowhead, and then Justin Herbert threw a pick 6 when they were in the red zone.
I remember that.
You remember that? And then he got hurt in that same game, and then it was this Chargers, man, they look so good coming into the year, and they had what would be the Super Bowl champions on the ropes. So you're right. That's a great point. The NFL season, 17 weeks, man. A lot can change between now and when the playoffs kick off. So.
Yeah. And then also, I think the Monday night game is probably the matchup of the week. You have the Cowboys playing the Chargers in LA. What's your read there? The Chargers defense has looked abysmal so far this season. The Cowboys just got waxed by the Niners.
Yeah.
Do you have a strong take on either team going into that game?
Not really. You would think that the Dallas offense should be able to course correct, but the Chargers have good players and they're coming off a bye. They got Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa rushing the passer, so they're going to have to figure out a way to slow down the pass rush. I think that'll be a good game though, because the Chargers never really find a way to blow anybody out, and neither do I feel like that's a perfect matchup of tight teams that are supposed to be really, really good And I'm not saying that they're not this year, but it's like we go into every year thinking, oh, the Cowboys, the Chargers, oh my God. And then they always find a way to, disappoint us. And so that's like a clash of these two Titan teams that are just perennial disappointers. So I think that's going to be a really good game. I think it probably should be pretty high scoring. I would think that the Cowboys probably have the better roster overall, but I don't think it's super out of I think they're pretty two evenly matched teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely would agree with you there. I mean, very excited to see how this weekend plays out. I mean, it's just awesome having. I know it's week 6 and we're in the thick of it, but it also kind of just feels like the NFL is still kind of recently back in our lives, and it's very fun to have these football Sundays again. But let's now pivot away from the football talk for a little bit. Like, what's your favorite barbecue spot here in Kansas City? Like, I know it's a big scene. I'm sure that people have their favorites. Like, what is your recommendation and why?
Well, firstly, you really can't go wrong if you come to Kansas City. There's barbecue joints everywhere. There's all sorts of one of our favorite spots to go in North Kansas City is Hog Jaws, which is in North Kansas City, like I said. But I'm partial to Arthur Bryant's. But you can't, like I said, Q39 is great. Kansas City Joe's is excellent. I mean, Gates, we went to Gates when we were here. Mm-hmm. You can't really go wrong. There's all sorts of, I'm spacing on the one that is on the Kansas side where it's these two ladies that run it. And basically when they run out of stuff, they're out. Like they make the preset amount for the day. And then once they're out, they're out. That's fantastic. I think a place called Slaps is really good. I've never been there. So there's like barbecue places that I still haven't been to. And I've been to a lot of them. Like I've been to Q39 and Arthur Bryant's and Gates and Oklahoma Joe or Kansas City Joe's now. They can't call it Oklahoma Joe's. Some trademark thing. It was Oklahoma Joe's for a long time. But I mean, you really can't go wrong. Like this is one of the, not that I would really know because I haven't been a ton of places, but this is some of the best food that I've ever had. And somebody from Texas would probably want to punch me right through the screen right now. It's like, no, we have the best barbecue, but this is excellent food in Kansas City.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. And then what are some other attractions in Kansas City that are, would you say, worth the detour for?
Well, the World War I Museum, which is right next to the the Union Station, I believe. That's an excellent place to go if you're a big history buff. It's fantastic. I'm a big baseball is obviously not going on right now, but we have the Royals here in town. The Royals games are always fun to go to. And we have the Negro League Baseball Museum here. I know I keep Jazz Museum, right? That's in the same spot. I'm a big baseball fan. So those are, I'm sure there's some more things. I'm a pretty simple guy, Dario. I like sports and I'm probably a stereotypical man in that sense where I just, I eat, live and breathe sports and listen to sports talk radio all the time. And but yeah, those are some things. And we got, the downtown area of Kansas City, I think is one of the more underrated spots. There's just a bunch of cool little bars and restaurants down there, and the Town Topic Burger and is a great place to go downtown. And anyway, so there's a multitude of things, and my wife is probably gonna, as soon as she watches this, assuming she watches it, I don't know if she's gonna watch it or not, to be honest with you, but she loves me nonetheless. If she does watch this, she'll probably say, oh, I can't believe you didn't say that or this or whatever. What's wrong with you?
Is she from Kansas City? Originally she's.
Yeah, you should really have her for this segment of the show. She would
phone a friend.
Yeah. She would have all the information for you, because I really just keep my head down and, she's like, oh, we're going to check out this place tonight. I was like, all right, cool. That sounds good to me. Anyway, I'm a simple guy with simple pleasures, Dario. I don't know how we got here in the conversation, but What I'm trying to tell you is I'm an idiot when it comes to these kinds of things. But anyway.
Clearly, you're not an idiot when it comes to grammar and editing articles. And you said that you're an English teacher. So I was curious, what is your stance on the Oxford comma?
Ooh, see, now I'm gonna get I know his first name's Dan. He wrote the offensive line article for us. Dan, something with an O.
Fornick.
Fornick, not an O.
Yeah.
F. Fornick. Sorry, Dan. But we had this conversation because I believe he's also an educator. I am pro Oxford comma.
Okay.
I know some people are not. I know, and this is what I know about the Oxford comma. A professor, it's weird what you take away from college. A professor told me that one of the reasons why the Oxford comma, some people don't use it, is because in like columns and in newspapers, like sometimes the column is so thin that they try to save space by not having an extra comma in there. But I'm old school, I guess, if that's the right way to say it, and I'm pro Oxford comma.
Yeah, I like it too. It just seems like proper and cleaner.
Yeah.
And then what do you like? Yeah, tell me more about, I guess, life as an English teacher. Like, what do you enjoy about that? And are you reading anything interesting lately?
You see, I'm still working on Seth Wickersham's book, the Tom Brady one,
Okay.
And Bill Belichick. Is it better to be feared? I think that's what it's called. But I'm awful with like reading. Like my wife will tell you, I'll get a third of the way through a book, and then it'll like I've probably been through a third of the way through like hundreds of books, and then I don't know what it is. Like Seth Wickersham's book I'm probably a third of the way through it, but that's the one I'm reading right now. But yeah, I'm more of a writer than I'm a reader, to be honest with you. And I know that sounds weird to say. Like I read, don't get me wrong. Like I read a plethora of sports articles, and as I would have told you at one time, I would have been into like more fiction, but now I've gravitated toward nonfiction in my old age, you know.
It's only a matter of time before you're reading the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire
and ranting on a fantasy football podcast for far too long about like all the mistakes that, I don't know, Caesar Augustus made or something.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts, any words to get out to the audience here today?
Well, I would say this. I hope you guys drafted David Montgomery. I mean, I tried Dario to tell him all off season long, and now these people, they're hopping on the David Montgomery bandwagon now that these people are in life. Like they just see success and they just want to say like, oh yeah, I said that, you know, or I was the first one to say that I didn't want to go to war, you know, how it goes. And so yeah, we've been, but it's serious. In all seriousness, we've been on a bit of a hot streak on the Dynasty Roundtable. So you should tune into that every other Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Time. We're probably going to get you and Evan Ringler on the show here soon. So be on the lookout for that. So that's exciting. And I don't know, like Player Profiler, I think, you know, obviously you're this far into fantasy football across America. So you're a dedicated watcher of Player Profiler. So, you know, this is the place to be for all of your fantasy content. Like we got it all covered here. I feel so blessed to, you know, be working with people like yourself and Theo and Matt Babich and Joel Ybarra, and the list goes on and on. Like all the producers like Jonathan Lang, Nick Tabbs. Oh God, now that I'm on the spot, I'm going to forget all the names. Emerson Beery, Aditya Foldiore. There's so many people that I work with that make my life a lot easier. And I'm very, very thankful for them all. Thankful for you, my friend.
Yeah.
This adventure you're on is unbelievable. You should click the like and subscribe for more of fantasy football across America. I don't think anybody else is doing something like this. Maybe they are. I don't know, but this is cool, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me over. Thanks for coming on the show. It's funny, we were talking earlier how kind of looks like we're actually on like a regular podcast Zoom call with the way this like wall is located, but if you can see, we're we're in the same room after all.
Yeah. See, we can go across back and forth.
But yeah, thanks for coming on, and we'll make sure to get people directed to the Dynasty Roundtable. Truly great insights there. And where can they find you online or your work?
I'm PlayerProfiler. You can find just about everything in the news and articles section. That's where all of our articles are. And then you can find me on Twitter and YouTube and all the social medias. It's some version of my first and last name. On Twitter, it's Seth_Diewold. And then YouTube is just my first and last name. So, and I have a link tree in my Twitter, so that's where you can find everything. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff. As it's funny, like it feels like I'm getting to the point now where I'm getting, and I don't know if you got to this point as well, or if you're getting there, is like you're being asked to be on more and more shows. And you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, I don't know if I deserve this, but this is nice.
A little bit. Yeah. No, I feel like it's still every time. I mean, just anyone wanting to do this show with me, I'm like, oh, wow, cool. Like,
I mean, you had Scott Fish on. Like, I have to follow Scott Fish. This is no not pressure. Really fair at all, but whatever. I mean, Scott Fish is wow. What a guest. Yeah,
that was a great show, and then this one also as well. So make sure you guys stay tuning in for more episodes of Fantasy Football Across America. Thanks for coming on the show, Seth, and we will catch you next time.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.